So I want to thank everybody who came for a work day today in the snow. Thank you very much. It's a huge help to us. Yeah. So I wanted to read today an article I saw in the New York Times this last week. That's called "Why Doing Good is Good for the Do-Gooder." Okay, so it was a break from what's usually in the paper. But I thought it was quite good, so I thought I'd read it and comment a little on it. So she starts out, the past few months with a series of disasters, seemingly one on top of each other, have felt apocalyptic to many. But the bright side to these dark times has been the outpouring of donations and acts of generosity that followed. And it's been astounding, too. From Hurricane Harvey flooding Houston to Hurricanes Irma and Maria ripping through the Caribbean to wildfires burning Northern California, cities and charities have been flooded with donations and volunteers. The outpouring of support is critical for helping affected communities to recover. But acts of generosity benefit the do-gooder too. So this is exactly what His Holiness talks about. Yeah. So here they have to do research on it, but research suggests that these community social connections are as important for resilience to disaster as is the physical material like disaster kits or medical supplies. And that's really true, it's the material things count, but it's the way people come and help together that I think helps people have faith and confidence and optimism. Yeah, not just the material things. Volunteerism is good for the health of people who receive social support, but also good for the health of people who offer their help. Okay, so the day after Christina Topham evacuated her home as a result of the fires in Sonoma, California, she and her boyfriend immediately looked for ways to donate and help. I just felt like I had to do something. I love my town and my community, and the reach of the destruction was astonishing from the very beginning, she said. Why is the first instinct for many to volunteer and donate after a natural disaster? Yeah. And isn't that amazing? First instinct. It isn't like, well, I got to protect myself, and so let's run away and, make sure that I'm okay. There's other people involved too. How can I go back and help? Okay. One reason is that as humans, we're evolved to survive in groups, not alone. Yeah, rallying together makes us feel less alone in the experience. When our survival is threatened, we are going to reach out and strengthen our connections with people around us. We show generosity, we show compassion, we show gratitude. These are all emotions that function to connect us to each other. Yeah, and it's that human connection that really fulfills a very strong need within us, to give to society, to give to others, to if you want to call it, make your mark. Yeah. So it's not just in terms of making ourselves feel good, but and making others feel good, but it's the satisfaction that comes about through changing ourselves and being able to connect with other people, even people we don't know who are total strangers who are having some difficulties, and the way that helps us in our practice. That's like what His Holiness always says about being compassionate, that when he's compassionate, he's the one who benefits the most, not the people he's compassionate towards. Because you never know what's going to happen with the people that you're kind towards. But, when you act with kindness and compassion, you yourself feel good. And so that is the reward itself. We don't need thank yous and our name in the newspaper and so on, but it's the inner feeling of having, mattered and done something that's affected others in a good way, and that really changes our own feeling about ourselves and our own lives as well. Scientific evidence supports the idea that acts of generosity can be beneficial when we volunteer and give back regularly, and not just after a natural disaster. Volunteering is linked to health benefits like lower blood pressure and decreased mortality rates. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so this one scientist has been studying the effects of positive emotions, such as compassion and kindness, on the brain since the 1990s. He said the brain behaves differently during an act of generosity than it does during a hedonistic activity. Interesting. When we do things for ourselves, those experiences of positive emotions are more fleeting. They are dependent on external circumstances. When we engage in acts of generosity, those experiences of positive emotions may be more enduring and outlast the specific episode in which we are engaged. And it's true, when we're just working for our own pleasure, you have a good meal, you have a good time with a friend, been there, done that, it's over, okay? But when we're engaged and we're helping, even after we go home afterwards, there's this feeling of having contributed and feeling good about what we've done that stays far longer in our hearts. Helping others also gives us a sense of purpose. Okay, so one person has discovered a strong association between a sense of purpose and well-being throughout life. Older adults who volunteered to help children with reading and writing tended to experience less memory loss and maintain greater physical mobility, one study suggested. Yeah, so that's why it's so good for seniors and kids to be together. Even in a family, the tutoring that goes on between the senior and the child helps both of them. I was at one Buddhist temple in Penang, Malaysia, and they had an old folks home on one floor and a child care center on the next floor. And they would get the kids and the seniors together, and it was adorable. And everybody benefited, Giving back is a fundamental teaching of many religions. Jesus had the golden rule. Buddha said in order to brighten one's own path, one must light the path of others. During a trip to India in 2016, I experienced firsthand how the benefits of doing good are well established in Indian society. I paid a visit to a Vedic astrologer because I was anxious about an uncertain future, my own personal crisis, and received a list of prescriptions to help others in order for me to get through my crisis. Okay, so the astrologer told her, first thing was to buy a black and white checkered blanket and then visit a local leper colony and donate it to the first person I saw. My next task was to buy a 6-pound bag of lentils, circle it around my head, chant a Sanskrit mantra, and give it to a homeless person. This is great, isn't it? Yeah, it really works to help people who are stuck and worried and anxious and all around themselves. Certainly, many Westerners would roll their eyes at these unconventional prescriptions, but they were familiar to my Indian friends who believe they hold real power. Later, to better understand the significance of the rituals, I reached out to Dr. Deepak Chopra. He said that the philosophical underpinnings in India come from the Vedas and the Buddhist traditions, where all human suffering is a result of the hallucination of the separate self. The moment you identify yourself as separate from other beings or other people or separate from life in general, then you will suffer. And it all begins with initial anxiety because when you're disconnected from people and life, you feel fear, and that creates the beginning of suffering. Isn't it? You know, when we're disconnected, our heart shuts down. A shut down heart feels anxiety and fear, and then the rest follows. When we're able to smile at people and engage with them, even in small ways, yeah, we feel connected and the sense of fear doesn't arise. And then the suffering doesn't arise after that. Would Western doctors ever prescribe acts of generosity? Probably only to themselves. What do you think, Doc?
I'm a Buddhist now, so I'm retired. I'm not a doctor.
Okay.
I'm a Buddhist.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so they consulted one doctor, and he doesn't rule it out. He says, we have sufficient scientific information to justify a very significant public health initiative, he said. If there were a retiree in my office, you're retired now, I would ask them, do you smoke? Do you exercise? What is your diet like? And I should also be asking them if they volunteer. Yeah? So that's the end of the article. I thought that was so nice. Yeah. And, you know, something that really corresponds with Buddhism and what we're doing here. And then, you know, they're showing scientific studies about how reaching out and benefiting others helps the person who's doing it too. So very good for everybody. So when you're freezing outside today, yeah, it seems like most of you are ignoring the cold and having quite a good time out there. But I was going to say then, you know, just come back to feeling connected because you're all part of the Abbey community.